from writer-director Rian Johnson.
The Holy Grail. A perfectly impossible crime.
Wake Up Dead Man has critics singing its praises.
God help me. Anything else?
It's a deliciously entertaining mystery.
That's nice.
It's certified fresh.
It's a miracle.
Okay, you're freaking me out now.
It's the best Knives Out movie yet.
This case is solvable, right?
Oh, you'll see. It's fun.
Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery starring Daniel Craig. Now playing in select theaters on Netflix December 12th, rated PG-13.
It's 7v7 soccer. Smaller the pitch, faster the action. The world's elite soccer clubs compete for their share of a massive $5 million prize. Catch World Sevens on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max December 5th through the 7th.
This is Addiction Medicine Journal Club. I'm Dr. John Keenan.
And I'm Dr. Sonya Tredici.
We believe that addiction is a disease that can be treated, and we want to help you stay up to date with the latest research that you can use in your addiction medicine practice. The podcast offers Category 1 CME through MyCares at Michigan State University. The links for the CME are in the show notes. This week, we're going to be discussing Cytisinicline. Did I say that right?
Cytisinicline.
Cytisinicline. An old but new treatment for smoking cessation.
You got to learn how to pronounce it.
Cytisinicline.
There you go.
All right.
How are you doing?
Yeah. Tired. How about you? What's new in your world?
Life is good. I had some positive news in addiction medicine I wanted to share. You know, whenever something good happens for the people who use drugs as a whole, it's always a victory because usually it's just bad stuff happening to that group. So, and this is very relevant to internal medicine. You know, mostly I deal with older people. So in the past, nursing homes have often denied entrance. So nursing homes and rehabs denied entrance to people with substance use disorder. They've often refused to prescribe medications for opioid use disorder and blocked those patients from getting into their facilities. So there was a recent lawsuit in South Carolina. It determined that this is, in fact, a violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. The suit was brought by a man who had been in the hospital and needed discharged to a skilled nursing facility, you know, for rehab after hospitalization. And because he had a history of substance use disorder, the rehabs in his area had refused to admit him, and he suffered significant medical consequences because he wasn't able to, you know, access those services. So it's very relevant because substance use disorder is actually a common problem in elderly people. It's not rare. There was another study that also just came out about the incidence of fentanyl and stimulant overdose in people over age 65. And in this population of, you know, people over 65, fentanyl-related deaths have increased from 264 in 2015 to 4,144 in 2023, which is a 1,470% increase over 8 years. This compares to a 660% increase in younger adults over the same time period. Anyway, I think this is very good news for patients with substance use disorder because they need medical services like everyone else, and especially rehab services. And the worry, I guess, is that they would bring chaos to the rehabs. And I could see that maybe, but I don't think they're actually at risk of doing that any more than anyone else. So, John, anything new in addiction medicine news you want to share with our listeners this week?
Yeah, I have a kind of interesting article about TikTok. I mean, how much of you live in a colonial house over there in Gettysburg. So are you a slave to the phone quite like the rest of us? Or do you kind of do a lot of these scrolling on Reels and TikTok?
I do not scroll TikTok because I don't have it. And I had to delete all social media off my phone because I'm vulnerable to spending too much time on it. So I only do social media on my computer now.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I would say that like character flaws, this is one of the things I think I struggle with the most is social media. I don't watch TV almost at all, but like I do kind of check my LinkedIn every day. I kind of post on there. I check my Facebook. And then you get dragged into these reels and like, you know, it's funny. You can be laying there for 30 minutes and that time can go away pretty quickly. And I feel terrible about it. I even bought a thing called a cell phone jail. Where you put your phone in a jail when you get home and you lock it. And then I lost the key to it and had to break it to get my phone back. So, you know, I don't know how that happened, but that's real. So this is real. So the title is How TikTok Keeps Its Users Scrolling for Hours a Day. And it's from October 7th, 2025. It's the Washington Post. And they talk about how kind of TikTok kind of caters to US users. Very interesting. And I'm sure you probably know this, but maybe some people don't. TikTok, it's not a US based company. And the
Mhm.
content that's available in its country of origin, which is China, is very different than the content that's available in the United States. It's mostly an educational product. Here it's this kind of social media influencer product. And they talk about this post from the Washington Post where they kind of analyzed data from over 800 users and looked at kind of over 15 million watched videos between April and September of 2024. And what they showed is that they kind of broke users into different subgroups and actually light users, so people that kind of used TikTok or social media, these reels that kind of learned towards you, they went over that period of time from using it less than 30 minutes a day to over a 4 month period, they went to over 70 minutes a day. So there's over a doubling in use as the algorithm kind of learned what kind of kept you entertained and what you wanted to do. And these, what they call power users, were using over 4 hours a day of TikTok. So a lot of TikTok.
Mm.
And really, it's volume overload. In an average 30 minute time period, you're seeing over 260 videos. So it's these kind of rapid succession videos targeted at you, kind of dopamine hit, and it really kind of hits very similar to a substance. And not only that, there's a learning effect. So over this kind of 4 to 5 month period of time, they've noticed that people, when they would access their phone, they would reach into TikTok quicker. So they would access the app more quickly. They would swipe quicker. The response time to switching and kind of what they wanted to view was quicker. So actually kind of like leaned into it the more they used it. And not only that, they talked about patient or subjects that were talking as they went and did this longer, they had a loss of time and disconnection. I guess it's a term called phubbing. Have you ever heard of that?
No,
No.
definitely not. Sounds terrible.
Yeah. I feel like I'm getting old because I don't know what any of these terms mean. I just had tonight a 12 and a 9-year-old. They were laughing because I didn't know what the term 6, 7 meant. And after a 15-minute explanation of the two siblings, I still don't understand what that means.
Yeah, that's because they don't know either, so,
I
they're
don't
just
think anyone
pretending.
knows. Yeah. Um, and I think the real kind of concern here is that um, these deep learning algorithms, they really kind of tailor towards like preconceived notions and kind of preconceived preferences, like these echo chambers of information. So as people went on longer, it got more personalized, but also more political, and people kind of tended to kind of jump into whatever their kind of lane was in terms of their political ideology. So kind of lots of concern regarding risk there. I don't know. Do you feel like that this is an area of concern?
Well, I do culturally. I mean, it's a huge waste of time. It's low value activity. I feel like it's bad for your health. It's bad for your mental health. Like when people are struggling and I'm trying to help them with their habits, I talk about diet and sleep and exercise, and avoiding that kind of social media scrolling is one of those things. It cuts into sleep. It takes away time from exercise. It destroys your focus, impacts relationships. I don't know. I just think it's really bad for you. It's like this cognitive junk food. And then as you said, you just get shown content that tends to reinforce whatever your thoughts are, reinforce and amplify what thoughts are going on inside your head, which is not always healthy, especially for people with any kind of mental illness.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm in a grad school class right now. It's about strategic information management, and we just did a huge deep dive into kind of AI and kind of I think that's what everyone's talking about. And it's interesting. I learned a lot because it's not quite what I thought it was, and at the same token, the ethical issues are not quite what I thought they were either. I think we think of things like job replacement as kind of a big ethical issue, and I know that's what everyone's concerned about. But I didn't realize the number one ethical issue with kind of AI is that, it processes very quickly and there's basically just these AIs running in the background that are generating misinformation to kind of feed to people. So it's like a misinformation machine. And think of how quickly it processes. And so like there's a lot of kind of like information sabotage currently occurring just from these factories generating repeated misinformation to feed into everyone's news feed. So it's kind of scary. Like how do you know what's real anymore?
Well, I think that is scary. Like I had seen, because I don't watch a lot of short form video, but I saw some video that it's too embarrassing to even say what it was, but it was very compelling and I thought it was real and I told my husband about it and then we tried to find it, like, searching. I'm like, if this really happened, there'll be like news about it, but it wasn't. And then I started getting shown multiple videos that were all similar, but like obviously AI generated.
Yeah.
And I think that initial one had also been AI generated, of course.
And some of the AI videos, they're it's very subtle, the difference. Like you have to really be looking hard to pick up. And I think that's just going to get harder as time goes on.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yes.
interesting.
Well, yeah, and I really look forward to doing more research on sort of smartphone addiction and short form video addiction. So if anyone has any articles to recommend, please send them our way.
Yeah.
So are you ready to hear about this article, John?
Yeah, let's
A-
hear about it.
About cystenicline. If anyone wonders how to pronounce it, it rhymes with varenicline. This was a article titled Cystenicline for Smoking Cessation, the ORCA Phase 3 replication randomized clinical trial. It was published in JAMA Internal Medicine in June of 2025. So basically, um, there are 3 FDA-approved medications for smoking cessation right now. There's bupropion, varenicline, and nicotine. They are more effective than placebo, but even the most effective medication, which is varenicline, has a 6-month quit rate of only about 22%. So that's not great. New smoking cessation medication options are desperately needed given the high burden of disease caused by tobacco worldwide and in the United States. So this paper is about a brand new medicine for smoking cessation called cystenicline. Like varenicline, cystenicline is another partial agonist of the alpha 4 beta 2 nicotinic acetylcholine receptor. And it's known also and previously known as cysteine, or I'm not cysteine, of cytosine, and it was renamed in this study. It's been widely used for smoking cessation worldwide, and that's why I said it's new but not new. In Central and Eastern Europe, it's been in use since 1964. It's approved in Canada and the UK for smoking cessation, but it's not available in the US. I looked at a previous review article that had used sort of a more traditional dosing, which is a complicated, like 25-day taper, showed efficacy with a relative risk of 1.74 and minimal side effects. So it's known to be effective. And I looked to see if I could buy it myself. So online, I could purchase the medication for about $50 for 100 tablets. And for a 12-week course of the dosing in this study, that would be $222 for the full course of medication. So that's not terrible for a medication that would get you to quit smoking. So we took a little bet when we talked about this in Live Journal Club about what this medication will cost once it's FDA approved. So I think I'll win if it's over $750 a month, or no, under $750 a month. I'll win our bet. So in general, this cystenicline, it was shown to be effective in the ORCA 2 trial. Now, this is the ORCA 3 trial I'm going to talk about, but there was the ORCA 2 trial published in 2023 that showed it was effective. And this study, the ORCA 3, was done to confirm those results of ORCA 2 and support an FDA approval application. So the authors established a new dosing regimen based on the cystenicline pharmacodynamics as well. Spoiler alert, based on this study, the medicine was FDA approved. So it was accepted on September 3rd, 2025 for FDA approval, and goal is to have it available on the market at the end of 2026. So we are going to be using this medication, hopefully within a year. And this will be the first new treatment for smoking cessation since varenicline came on the market. So it's a really important article, and I was glad we went through it in detail. So, John, would you be excited if there is another medication for smoking cessation?
Yeah, I think I would be. I mean, certainly smoking cessation comes up all the time. I didn't know a lot about this medication until we presented in Journal Club. Although I've heard that before, like cytosine as kind of another smoking option. I always kind of quiz the residents about that. I didn't kind of put 2 and 2 together until you said that. It's interesting reading about it after the Journal Club that it seems like at first like this is like the same medicine. Although it's really not. It sounds like it has a very different side effect profile. It sounds like it's a milder side effect profile when you compare them head to head. So I think it'd be nice to have that on the market.
Yeah. No, I think it'll be great. It's as I said in the beginning, we have options, but none of them work that well. So it'd be great if there's something that was just another option for people. So This trial, let's talk about the study design. It was a randomized, placebo-controlled, blinded trial comparing cytisinicline for 6 weeks, cytisinicline for 12 weeks, and placebo for the outcome of smoking cessation. So who was in this study? It was adults. You had to smoke 10 or more cigarettes a day and want to quit. And you had to have objective measures of smoking, which was expired carbon monoxide level of greater than 10 ppms. It excluded people who were unstable, like with unstable cardiovascular disease, recent use of illicit drugs, already using other smoking cessation aids, using cannabis, or unstable mental health diagnoses. In general, they had 20 clinical trial sites all over the US and 15 US states, and it was done in 2022, 2023. The mean age was 52, it was 55% women, 80% white, 18% black, and the mean smoking history was 1 pack per day for 13 years, with 4 prior quit attempts. And about 40% had tried and been unsuccessful with varenicline in the past. So this is pretty typical of my demographics. These are longtime smokers. The intervention was 3 milligrams of cytisinicline 3 times a day for 12 weeks, 3 milligrams of cytisinicline 3 times a day for just 6 weeks, followed by placebo for 6 weeks, or placebo for the whole 12 weeks. And then all groups received an intensive behavioral intervention, which was 14 behavioral support sessions, each one pretty brief, about 10 minutes. So over the course of this study, you went to multiple behavioral support sessions as well. The outcomes were smoking abstinence, so they verified it biochemically, looking at exhaled carbon monoxide, continuous smoking abstinence during the last 4 weeks of the 6 and 12-week treatments, and then they looked at an end of treatment outcome at 24 weeks, which was a secondary outcome after the trial had ended. And people had stopped the medication, did they maintain their smoking abstinence? They also looked at cravings using a questionnaire called the Questionnaire of Smoking Urges. And they looked at adverse events, which is important because this is a new FDA application, kind of a new medication on our market. So side effects are important. And it was done over, 12 weeks time. So 6 weeks of medicine, 12 weeks of medicine, and then an additional 12 weeks of follow-up. So John, what did you think of the clinical question and the trial setup?
I mean, it sounds like it's a pretty good trial setup, right? You got kind of different subgroups. I thought the fact that they included like a group that had previously tried varenicline, because that's going to be a question I have is, is it more effective in that subgroup? It seems like it's pretty valid overall. And it seems like it's a decent enough time frame, right? Like most of our smoking cessation trials were like that 8 to 12 weeks. I know that even varenicline, I think initially the recommendation was up to 8 weeks, and then it's kind of expanded over time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was a very well-designed trial. And of course, this is a pharmaceutical company design trial with, looking for FDA approval. And so they really put the resources into making it good. I thought it was a good size. It was really big, 792 people. And it was even bigger than their planned sample size, which was 750. Like I said, it was randomized, blinded, placebo-controlled. The groups were very similar at the start of the trial. Maybe the placebo group, they had a little bit more previous use of smoking cessation aids, but I'm not sure that would have really biased the outcome in any way. They had very good follow-up. Almost 80% of people completed the trial, and the participants completed almost 90% of the behavioral support sessions. So really good follow-up. They did an intention to treat analysis, and they classified the missing data as smoking, which I think is appropriate. The time was good, like you said, and the outcomes were clinically relevant. They were both subjective, self-report, and objective biomarkers of smoking. They reported on adverse events. And then I always think about funding. This was a trial designed for FDA approval, supported by the manufacturer, a group called Achieve Life Sciences. And they had a motivation to see as large an effect size as possible, as well as to distinguish it from varenicline. It was an intensive study, excellent follow-up. And so I won't say that that's a weakness, but it's an ideal state. And so medication studied in this ideal state with this kind of great follow-up, it might not represent clinical practice. So I anticipate that myself, I might not get outcomes as good as you would see in this study. But I did think it was really good. Any other comments before we talk about the results?
No, I guess it's more of a curiosity. Like, this medication's been around in Europe since, was it the 60s? Why
Yeah.
why does it take 60 years to get here?
I'm sure someone knows the answer to this question, but I do not know. I mean, I do remember papers in the New England Journal from a long time ago about its efficacy, but I don't know why no one wanted to bring it to market in the US. If you know the
Interesting.
answer and you're listening, let us know. All right, ready
Okay.
for the results?
Yeah.
All right, so cystinicline is effective for smoking cessation in both groups, 6 weeks and at 12 weeks. The benefits extended all the way to 24 weeks, so even after people stopped the medicine, they didn't all go back to smoking. It also mitigated nicotine cravings and nicotine withdrawal and had very minimal adverse effects. The results were statistically significant, clinically significant, and they were present in both the subjective and objective measures of smoking cessation. So basically, it worked well. Primary outcome, which was smoking cessation, was achieved by 30% of the 12-week cystinicline group. So that's awesome. Placebo group in the same study achieved abstinence of about 9%. At week 24, after people then had stopped the medicine, was about 20% compared to 4.2% in the placebo group. So about 10% of people went back to smoking after they stopped the medication. The other 20% stayed abstinent. So those are just really great numbers. 30% of people after being on the medicine for 12 weeks had quit smoking. They also really looked at abstinent rates over time, which I thought was cool. There's a great figure in the paper, which maybe I'll post on social media, or you could look at it if you pull this paper up yourself. It's in the supplement, and it shows that abstinence rates on the dose continue to rise all the way up to week 12. It's not like it plateaus. So up to week 12, more and more people continue to quit smoking. So it makes me think that if you continued the medication beyond 12 weeks, you might see even more people quit smoking eventually. I probably, if I'm going to use this medicine, I might tell people to stay on it even longer. If they were still smoking at 12 weeks, they could try to continue it a little longer, even though that's not shown in this study. That's what that graph says to me. It also reduced cravings. They did this questionnaire called the Questionnaire of Smoking Urges. But that was only a few points different in the scale. The scale ranged from 10 to 70 points. And the difference in this study was only a few points. So I'm not sure how clinically relevant that reduction in smoking urges was. So all in all, I think it really worked well. If we talk about the adverse events, again, really important to report since this will be a new medication on our market. The most common adverse events were insomnia, abnormal dreams, and headache. Pretty similar to varenicline, although slightly less incidence. There were no serious adverse events. There were 4 deaths, which kind of seems like a lot for 750 people over 3 months, but none of them were attributed to the medication. So there were some sort of accidental deaths, but no medication-related deaths. So I thought the results were really good. What did you think, John?
I mean, I think it's very interesting. It'll definitely be another. I mean, it's approved now, right? So it's coming. I think it'll be a nice option to have for people. I'd be interested to see it over time if one kind of comes out as a leader here with a very similar mechanism of action, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think I'll be using this. As far as smoking habits and demographics, these patients are very similar to my study, to my patients. They did exclude people with like unstable cardiovascular disease, using illicit drugs, but that's a very small subset of people who are seeking smoking cessation. The medication isn't yet available, so I haven't used it yet, but in a year, hopefully I will be able to. I'm interested to see what the initial cost is. And as I said, you could purchase it online for $222 for the 3-month course. I don't know what the shipping would be. I think it has to come from Germany.
Did they tease out that 40% that had already been over varenicline? Like, did they kind of subgroup analyze that to see if there was if that they performed differently than the rest of the groups?
That is a great question, and I would have to go into the supplemental material to look and see if they included that. But yeah, that's a great question. I'll look it up and maybe I'll post it on social media or something. The benefits, which is smoking cessation, definitely outweigh the risks, which is, the sort of low-level adverse effects. The number needed to treat compared to placebo in this intensive setting was 4.7. So, for about 4 to 5 people who try this medication, 1 will be able to quit smoking. And given how devastating smoking is to your health and your life overall, definitely worth to try. I think it will probably be less effective in a quote unquote real world primary care setting where we kind of give people the prescription. I offer them intensive smoking cessation. We have classes. I have an app people can use. I have counselors they can see, and almost always people decline those additional measures. So I'm not sure how it will work without that behavioral component. But, in summary, I'll definitely try it. I can't say if it's more effective than varenicline or bupropion or nicotine, but I'll definitely put it in my arsenal. And it sounds like you will too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I can always use another tool in that toolbox, right?
I know. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, that's all I got about this.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you giving that article. It's really kind of a nice add-on that we should have here going forward. So thank you for listening to the Addiction Medicine Journal Club. The best part of any journal club is the conversation, and we want to hear what you have to say. To have your opinions about the articles included in a future episode, send us your comments on social media, email, or join our Facebook group. The links are in the show notes. Original theme music was composed and performed by Benjamin Kennedy. Audio editing by Michael Bonanno. CME support from MyCare is produced by Dr. Patrick Beeman and Ars Longa Media. Addiction Medicine Journal Club is intended for educational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. The views expressed here are our own and do not reflect the views of our employer or the authors of the articles we review. All patient information has been modified to protect their identities. Thank you for being part of the conversation. Have a great day.